Max Mega Menu is a great plugin to create an accessible menu on your WordPress website. It works with tons and tons of themes right out of the box just by installing it and activating it. However, just because you can create an accessible menu doesn't mean you don't need to do some configuration to get there. So here we're going to walk through the desktop configuration for the Max Mega Menu plugin. First thing you're going to do is install it. Once it's installed, you'll go to Mega Menu and Menu Themes. Here, you'll see the theme title. We have it set to just default. If you're going to have several different menu themes, perhaps you have menus used in different locations and may need different orientations, you can give them appropriate names so that you can find them again later. I typically leave the arrows alone, but if you'd like to modify these, you definitely can, and they have a few different options if you have a particular style you want to match. The line height. I will normally set the line height to 1.5. That's very readable for most people. Z-index, I normally leave alone. The shadow can be really nice to help differentiate your menu from the page background. Typically, I will either do a border or I will do a shadow. In this example, I will be doing a border, so I'll leave the shadow turned off. Keyboard highlight outline. This is a fantastic new feature that they have recently added, and this allows you to match your website's branding and to create nice contrast between the outline and the actual color of menu items. So here I've selected to set the color to match my branding. I've set the width from their default of 3 pixels to my preference of 2 pixels, which matches the rest of my theme. And I have set the offset from -3, which is where it was by default, to 0. This way it will include the double outline that is in my theme. So when something is outlined, it gets first a white outline and then a blue outline in my theme. And that makes things very easily readable in contrast. So I will set the offset to 0. I don't use hover transitions and I don't use the reset widget styling. And when I'm happy, I save these changes. Then I come to the menu bar tab. The first thing I do is I want to set heights in rems. And I want to set widths in either pixels or VWs. VWs are viewport width. I have set my menu background to be transparent. I don't need the actual menu itself to have a background color. I normally don't use a lot of padding here, but you definitely can if that helps with the design style that you're aiming for. You can align your items however you prefer. It's really just a preference and design style. This will align your items either on the left, in the center, or on the right, and depending upon what style you have for your look, one of those may be more appropriate than the others. The item font. I set this to the color I'm using, and I set the font size to be 1 rem, because you always want your font sizes in rems. This way, when people enlarge their fonts, which zooming your fonts to 200% is a WCAG requirement, this will allow people to do that and not break. The Safari and the Firefox browsers have a built-in text-only zoom. There's also extensions for Chrome and Chromium browsers, which will do the same thing. So it's important to allow people to just scale their font size and not break the rest of your menu. I set white for the hover because I'll be using a hover background. I set the item background itself to be transparent and then to be blue on hover. You can add item spacing if that matches your design. Typically, I leave the item padding alone, and if I do modify the padding, I keep it in pixels. Normally, I don't put borders around the top level menu items. and I normally don't do a border. You do want to turn off the highlight current item because that can actually cause problems for people who have cognitive disorders. And of course, save these changes when you're done. Then we're going to come to flyout menus. Here in the flyout menus, I want to set a color for the background because this is going to overlay site content. So I have set the background to be white. I normally leave this width alone. If I do modify it, I am going to go with either pixels or VWs. Again, that is for viewport width. I will typically only use that if I'm pulling out a full-on mega menu. We're just doing flyouts for this tutorial. I have set a menu border, and I'm using the 2 pixels that I have been using throughout my design, and I've set it to the color that I'm using. I set the actual individual item background to match that of the submenu background. Then I set the background on hover to match the main level of the menu. Heights, again, are always set in rems, so I have set the height to 2.5 rems. This matches the height of the main menu, the top level. I've left the paddings alone. And for the font, I have set it to be the blue. And again, I have set my font size in rems. Hover, it's white and on a blue background. I frequently turn on the menu item divider. This is a decorative styling, but I found it to be quite nice, and it can definitely help people to see the difference between the different menu items. Since it's decorative, I'm just using a light gray. Now that we have set up our desktop menu, we are going to go to Appearance and then Menus. And here we are going to enable the Max Mega menu for my primary menu. If you don't see the ability to turn on Max Mega menu, then it means that you haven't selected a menu location. This display location is essential to get Max Mega menu working. So if you do have to select it, make sure to save your menu. Now that I've enabled Max Mega menu, I typically leave the defaults alone. The effect is hover intent. That means that you put the cursor over it. That is the most commonly used one and what most people expect. I do a very quick effect, and it's just a fade. And I don't do any effect on mobile. This theme matches the theme name that we set in the initial menu themes settings. And then I just click Save. While I'm here, I want to decide what I'm going to do with top level menu items. What I mean is, here's my demo site. You'll see this menu item about the tests, and it acts as a drop-down. It also is a link, so this can be a little confusing. I'm going to show you the keyboard navigation on this, and you'll see that it selects the whole item. Now, generally what I prefer to do is for top level items, I turn on the mega menu and I click on settings and I disable the link, and then I save that. Those settings are now saved. When I come back here, you'll see that there's no longer any actual link that's being highlighted. This turns this into a button, and the button only opens and closes the menu. The button doesn't do anything else. And that's much cleaner markup and much easier for people who have disabilities to understand. This is a button, it opens a submenu, that's all it does. And I will do that as well for my other drop-down menu. I will set the settings to disable the link. And if I were to have a normal About menu, what I will normally do is I will have the About menu on top and then the very first item as the intended link, where I would normally want to say about the company. And now we have set up the desktop version of the menu. So now we are going to go in the next tutorial and do the mobile menu.